Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hospitality Edge podcast. This podcast is meant to bring together what we think are two sides of the same coin, real estate and hospitality. Whether you are a current or aspiring short-term rental property manager, host, or real estate investor, you're in the right place. Dive in with us to uncover the captivating stories and golden nuggets from industry heavyweights, including leaders, operators, investors, syndicators, founders, and entrepreneurs. So thank you. Really, thank you for embarking on this journey with me. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast, and I promise I'll do my best to deliver value-packed episodes that hopefully will not just inform, but also help inspire the next generation of real estate and hospitality professionals. Truly yours, Sebastián Muñoz. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Hospitality Edge podcast, where we bring what we think are two sides of the same coin together, hospitality and real estate. And today, I'm super excited to have Tim Smith with us, founder of GunnSmith Holdings. How are you today, Tim?
Doing great. Good to see you.
Good to see you again, Tim. So before we get into this, I just want to give a quick introduction to who you are, and then you can elaborate a little bit more on this. So Tim Smith was a Central Florida businessman for 20 plus years. From his humble beginnings as a server at the very first Olive Garden on White Drive, Tim learned the hustle of being self-sufficient. His efforts basically led him to a career in the sales arena, and he quickly rose to top performer in each of his positions. So he went to be a senior vice president, enterprise vice president, and to have a very successful career in sales, to then go and start his own company. So he actually was a Salesforce.com registered partner and grew that company to eventually exiting it and selling the business, and then moved on to do many other things within the vacation rental space, including, a property management company that he has right now, a laundry business, and many, many other things. Passionate about hospitality, passionate about real estate, passionate about integrity. Good friend of mine. Tim, what can you tell us about, who you are and what you've been up to these days?
Thanks, Seb. I appreciate that. And yes, good friends. Good to see you again. Yes, started as basically sales all my life, and ended up never realizing, as most of us don't, what we were actually going to do one day. Different industries, different careers over the time frames. Built a business. Was fortunate to sell that at the right time. Worked for that company for a bit. Came to Florida, back to Florida where my family is, and during COVID, so it wasn't time to go back to Manhattan at that point. Decided, you know what, let's see what's going on here, and purchased a rental management, short-term rental company, and started building in that industry, and just fell in love with this whole industry and the real estate and everything about it. And hearing all about people's fun trips, and we get to host them and be a part of their lives when they're having a blast. So it's fun.
That's awesome, Tim. That's awesome. So let's take a step back here for a second. So first thing that I want to dive into is how you got started. So you said it was in sales, so many years in sales. So you were very successful, actually, in your career in sales. So before we go into how you got into the vacation rental space, acquiring this business, tell us about that transition from being in sales to eventually having your own company as a Salesforce.com consultant.
Yeah, so I was different sales over the years, and then I was in the mortgage industry. As most of us know, the mortgage industry was really, really great until it drastically wasn't. During that time frame, we rolled out Salesforce.com, fell in love with the ability to see numbers right away, make decisions based on data. I've been in sales all my life, but I'm also a pretty process-driven salesperson. make decisions based on the data. Now having that data in front of me, so I fell in love with Salesforce and the tool. Mortgage world changed. Needed to find something else. Kind of stumbled into consulting in that space, and was fortunate to actually build a business. Realized that there's people out there far smarter than me, especially in that technical space there. And they started hiring those folks. We built a good company that we then sold to a larger company, of course. I went to work with them for a little bit in sales.
You sold the company after how many years? After how many years of working in it?
So it's about 9. I guess we officially started in 2009 and sold in 2017, so 8 years.
Okay.
Sold to a larger company and went to work for them, and kind of stepped back to the sales aspect and just really working with clients one-on-one and small and medium businesses in the financial services space, real estate space and all, to help them roll out the technology and understand it, use it, and really use it to make better decisions and all. So I was back to doing what I love to do without ownership for a little while. But then that didn't last. So.
And so before we close this stage of your life, was very successful in sales to the point that you scaled this consulting firm and was able to sell it. You were able to sell it. So what were the main lessons for you throughout this stage of your life, as far as whether that's on the sales aspect of things, or you were even saying that you were a very process oriented salesperson? I'm in sales myself. Curious to know, because sales is a skill that, even if you're a property manager, you need to sell to homeowners, you need to sell them the pricing strategies, or whether you're in real estate and you're trying to negotiate an offer that you want to go through, or seller financing, or whatever the case may be. What were the main lessons for you throughout this stage in your career, and what do you take out of this?
No, that's a great question. So part of scaling, some people might be familiar with the EOS system, Entrepreneur Operating System. We rolled that out in our company, and I know that helped us get more money when I did sell than if I hadn't rolled it out. Some of the lessons learned, and I won't necessarily admit which ones were the really hard ones and which ones came along more easily, but when you're scaling, it's saying no if it's not a right fit, if it's not the right customer, not the right client. In today's world, if it's not the right owner,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to take on everybody. It needs to be a right fit. There still needs to be an alignment of interest and focus on the joint things. Hiring smart people, passionate, creative folks, and let them do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
No one person can be. There's few of us out there, and I'm not one, that can be amazing at the guest relationship and the owner relationships and the website and the pricing and this and that. And so by finding the right folks and getting out of their way, I was able to build a viable entity that somebody then wanted to purchase.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Can you tell us more about the EOS system?
Yeah.
What is that about, for those that haven't heard of it?
So it's a great book. Everybody should read it. It's called Traction. The value of EOS is that it does put systems and processes in place. So many times as entrepreneurs, we're running from one aspect to another. Today the focus, if it's even a whole day, today the focus might be operations, tomorrow it's sales. Those of us that are entrepreneurs realize, though, that mostly it's even hour to hour sometimes what our focus is. And so EOS puts in a structure that
Mm-hmm.
allows us to actually accomplish all the million things that we want to do. And entrepreneurs were great at coming up with all these ideas and how we can grow and how we can do things better, be better for our customers, our clients, our guests, be better for our employees. But without a structure in place to actually do those things, we look back a year later, 6 years later, whatever, and they just didn't quite get done. Doesn't mean we have a bad business, doesn't mean it's not profitable, but for me at least, it felt like I was constantly that hamster scurrying, not making progress. And by rolling out a business template, which all the giant companies do this stuff, they
Mm-hmm.
already have all that built in, or they hire high-priced consultants to do it for them.
Mm-hmm.
And by putting in a system, a process where we could support each other, where we could actually get things accomplished that built our business, that allowed us, and this is, it allowed us to work on our business, not always just in it and trying to
Mhm.
survive.
That's very interesting. So let's say if you were talking to someone that's starting or scaling a property management company today, or whatever, a real estate portfolio today, what would be one concept from the EOS framework or from
Yeah.
Traction book that you would say, hey, today you need to do this, you need to implement that? What would it be?
So honestly, I believe everybody should implement EOS. We have that as one of our third quarter rocks, and that's a key phrase from that system. It's what are the biggest things that you can focus on? You take a jar and you have rocks, you have pebbles, and you have sand. If you put the sand in first, all this little stuff every day that we all deal with and we all have to take care of, but if you deal with that first, you never have room to focus on. You might get to focus on the pebbles, on some of the things that you're trying to accomplish, but you never get to the rocks. You never get to those big goals that can actually change your business in
Hmm.
a pivotal way. And so by having those as your focus, by focusing on those daily, um, by setting quarterly goals and saying, here's what we are going to accomplish this month, it
Hmm.
keeps your mind focused on it. It keeps your people focused on it. And all the daily stuff gets handled, but you also move your business forward.
Hmm. Interesting, interesting. Yeah, so it comes down to also saying no to all the rest, and being able to focus on the things that actually are important, and are the priority. So tell me something. You say that you were very good in sales, but you all were also very process oriented. How much of that was just natural personality of yours versus intentionally you realizing that only being good with people wasn't going to just be enough, and you had to put some structure in place to complement it?
Well, I would, it didn't come natural. I'll say that for sure.
Okay.
Uh, but I've never been a short term thinker, I guess. I've never just said, all right, what do we do to get through today? Now, some days you have to focus that way, and that's fine as long as you keep
Hmm.
the rocks and the goals in place. But I've always, my sales positions that I had, the earliest ones, I always felt like I was just running from one month to the next. At the
Hmm.
end of the month, you were back to zero and you were starting over. And yeah, there's some carryover and all, but you were always back to zero. And to me, that just didn't feel good. To constantly be being judged, which as salespeople we are. We're
Hmm.
constantly being, sometimes personally, sometimes professionally. We're constantly having to reprove ourselves. And if you in a business where you're only as good as your latest sell, then you're not really giving yourself any comfort. You're not giving yourself any grace. You're not allowing yourself a structure to grow, even personally. So
Hmm.
even though it was just me in the mortgage space, and I put the systems in place, and we started, saying no to some brokers, no to some loans, no to some people. It allowed me to know that I was building something. I was not just focused on this sale, and this sale had to happen, or else I'm not worthy, and
Hmm.
I was not going to be okay. By putting the systems, and I've been surrounded by some really great process people and smart folks over the years. One in particular in the mortgage space, and she controlled my daily life, and I'm glad for that because it meant that at the end of the month, technically it was zero, but we were already starting stuff and closing stuff the next day, and it didn't feel personal.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. I love what you're saying about having a long term time horizon. When you're just focused on the day to day, then I get how processes might not be needed. And we always say, that you need to be fixing for tomorrow's problems, right? So I guess it comes down to that, right? If you just if you find an issue and you just put some masking tape on top of it, you're not fixing the root cause. You're fixing the symptom, right? So I love what you're saying about, hey, if I'm in this for the long run, well, I need to make sure I have something sustainable here. So that's where the importance of processes come. That's awesome. And now you said that after you sold, you didn't stay there for too long with the company employed. Why was that? You went from working 9 years as an entrepreneur to now going back to being an employee. Was it a tough transition?
No. Well, yes, in some ways it definitely was on the day-to-day structure. I ended up working for them for about 2 years. That was part of the plan and part of the payout and all that good stuff. Um, in a way, it was interesting. I was dating a woman at that time um, who said, for the first time in my life at that point, I had nobody that I was responsible for. Kids were grown and gone. I had no employees because when you have employees, you know, it's they're getting paid before you treat it, at least I do, and I know most entrepreneurs do. We do some things we do for our employees just because they are counting on us. And so there was a nice period there where I could go. I moved to New York City. I focused just on sales. I didn't have to worry about paydays and making sure everybody was happy and doing the best of their job and so forth. And so there was a lot less stress. At the same time, I remember several conversations where now and then the boss would say, okay, yes, it's the right answer, but you don't have the right to say that. You don't have the right, because I would still treat it like I was the owner sometimes, especially with, I'm not giving away the farm or anything, but I would talk to a customer or a prospective customer and say, here's what we're going to do and here's how we're going to do it and so forth. And I had to be reminded it wasn't in my hands to do that. So, but no, it was a nice time period of not having that month to month, day to day kind of responsibility. But after a while, it's like, okay, that's not who I really am. So let's get back to taking on everything.
And what was next?
So it's one of those COVID stories. March 11th, 2020, I came down for a 5-day weekend. At that point, the company I'd sold to was selling, so I was actually going to get some payout. The kids were really pushing me to come back to Central Florida, and that was when COVID hit. So I was like, well, I can't actually go back to Manhattan right now, or not a good place to go back to, and I have a place here. I stayed in a hotel for about 5 weeks. I actually ended up being asked to leave hotel because I was the last guest there, not because I did anything wrong. And I purchased a condo that was supposed to be a rental property, and I could come back and forth and see the family anytime, and it's beachside. So, family was excited about that. But then as I was here and COVID continued, I moved in, of course, and it became home. And during that time period, I became exposed to this great area that we live in, the people, the property, the stuff to do, and some of the business opportunities that actually exist. And once you're an entrepreneur and you look for ways to provide value that may not be there, you're always looking for that. And so the opportunity came along for me to purchase the existing rental company. I did that, and not quick and easy, but here we are 3 years later.
But wait a minute. So you had this property that you had purchased for yourself to live in. Is that correct? And then,
right,
where does the opportunity come from as far as you buying a property management business?
Yeah, great question. So I bought in a building that is pretty much all short-term rentals. A condo in a building that is pretty much all short-term rentals. And so the general manager of the on-site rental company came to me and said, hey, I know you're looking to buy other property. Do you want to do that, or do you want to buy a business that manages 30 properties?
Okay.
Start looking at it. The sellers were motivated. The financials made sense. It was right here. It wasn't like I had to drive to check on it even. And it was motivated sellers. It was COVID time. And so I was like, yeah, let's talk. And we went through it all. We closed the deal. I tell you one thing that was the strangest. I've bought and sold businesses before and closed contracts and all. It was COVID. It was May 4th. We weren't shaking hands. We weren't even in the same room to sign all the paperwork. We were in two different rooms at the attorney's office. They signed all theirs with a pen, kept their pens, paperwork over to us. We take our pen, or I take my pen, sign everything, give it back. Everybody's wearing masks, and we don't get to shake. And I know it's old school. Some people may not think it's a big deal, but we didn't get to shake, fist bump, anything. It was just, oh, it's done. So
Yeah, no, I always feel like
that's
something's missing.
that was an
Whenever I close a deal, I do my virtual handshake. It's it's something I like to do. So
yeah, it was different.
team, tell me something. You've been in real estate and you've also sold businesses and bought businesses. A lot of the fundamentals are the same, right? You're looking at revenues, you're looking at expenses, you're looking at a multiple on, EBITDA or on, whatever the case may be. But what are some of the similarities and differences when you're looking at buying real estate versus buying an actual company based on your experience?
Well, there's always the devil's in the details, right? It's funny how some statements we've used over the years, and are always come true. So the devil is always in the details. One biggest thing you have to think about as a difference is, of course, real estate. It is a piece of property. It is there. It is something that exists. Unless you're buying a business that has property included, you're somewhat buying a concept. You're buying what someone else has put in. It doesn't make it a bad deal, but at the end of the day, worst case scenario, you buy a piece of property and it doesn't work out as planned. Maybe it can't be short-term rental. Maybe the regulators step in. Maybe it can't even be a rental. Maybe it has to be this. It has to be that. You still have that land. You still have that structure, hopefully, unless one of our hurricanes. So you still have something. So there's a backup plan, as it were. With a business, you have backup plans. You have backup activities that you could do if something changed. But you are buying what someone else has built, hopefully with structure and ongoing contracts and so forth. But it's you have to look at it differently. You're not just taking on a piece of land.
So it seems like, they're both good options, right? You went in wanting to buy more property and you ended up inclining yourself towards, buying the business instead. What do you think was it that made you choose to go in this direction rather than, you could have just said, I'm just going to build my investment portfolio. I'm going to keep buying properties and I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to go all in on that. Why did you decide to, put that on pause for a moment and go and actually buy the management company?
So there's two aspects of it. One would be the fact that every condo was around 400K at that point. So to go buy 30 condos at 400K is what, 12 mil? Yeah, that's a chunk. Whereas you could manage those, receive revenue off of those without putting up that kind of money. You also then are partners with someone that they want to fix their property. They want to keep it up. They have those overhead and those costs going on. So sometimes controlling an asset, whether it's other property or laundromat or whatever, sometimes controlling an asset can work out even better than owning the asset.
So you get the pros, of ownership without necessarily the cons, right? I guess
you do. And
to some extent.
Headaches. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, of course there's headaches. There could be not headaches. There could be challenges around if you're not alignment, right? If you and that owner aren't on the same page, it's not your property. You can't make them do stuff. You can decide you don't want to work with them, and that's fine. But you lose 100% control, but you gain an upside as long as you're with like-minded folks.
And the other thing I see too when I compare, property and business is you can buy a property and you can try to increase rent as much as you want and you can do all the pricing optimization in the world, but at the end of the day, that one property, there's going to be a cap, at some point in how much revenue it can generate. Whereas you buy a business, I mean, the sky's the limit. What's your ambition? What's your skill set? How good of a team can you build around yourself? How good processes can you put in place, and go ahead? Were you exposed and were you familiar to the vacation rental industry when you made that decision? Was it the first time you heard about the concept of a property management company being acquired? Because now you're in the game. Now you have a lot of experience when it's come to it. But back then, was it something relatively new to you, or you were already familiar with the space?
No, it was totally new. I mean, I had actually stayed in this building at different times when I lived in Orlando. We would come over here. This is our beach. So we would come over here and stay at different times in this building and other vacation rentals. But that's like most folks in this business until, we were exposed to it that way as guests,
Mm-hmm.
but never as a business.
Okay. So when you were doing your due diligence, you told me earlier what made you decide, hey, this is a good opportunity, let's move forward. But when you were analyzing the business as a whole, did you see that there were very large property management companies out there, that this was actually a very professionalized industry where there was a lot of growth opportunities? And did you know how far you could take this from the moment you were buying it? Or did you first buy it and then you started to realize, oh wow, there's actually a larger opportunity here that I just got myself into?
So to begin with, no, I did not realize it. It was we'll call it a mom and pop. It was doing okay. At the price that I was purchasing, I would get my money back pretty quick. And it was an existing business. It was being ran by the people who had been here for 15, 16 years. So no, I didn't. It just made sense from a perspective of the numbers made sense, and it allowed me to put some money that I had come into, from the sale of the business. It allowed me to go, you know what, let's do this. Let's set down roots. Let's become a local businessman, and actually go from there. What happened over the year after that was I started to realize more and more that for example, at that point, Seb, the only thing that we were on was our website. That was it, 100% direct booking. And everybody's like, oh, that's great. No, it's not. We all would love to not rely on the channels as much, but 100% direct means you're not getting enough eyes on it, you're not charging enough rates, et cetera, et cetera. So I started looking at that. I terminated the management team that was in place. I stepped in at that point. That's when I hit every podcast, every white paper, every conference, etc. And actually, I didn't even do that quite yet. I had at that point, most folks in this industry knows, there was a large company, still very large, that they were going around just buying up companies left and right. They were buying up all the mom and pops. They made me an offer. It was a very good offer. But then when I looked at it, my business sense kicked in, my entrepreneur sense kicked in, and said, wait a minute, if they're willing to pay me that much for what was not a business, an old website, no technology, no pricing, no revenue management, 100% direct booking, not on any channel. I mean, just it was the historical, which a lot of them still are in certain areas of the country. But I looked at that and I'm like, wow, if they're willing to pay that much for what is not really a business,
Mm-hmm.
what could we do? What could we turn it into? And that's when we dove in and ended up leading, of course, to meeting you. But that's when we dove in, we saw the potential of what this could be.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So you were like, wow, let's press the pedal and let's put some gas in this, and let's see where this can go. All
And
right.
I'm very grateful. Yeah, I'm sorry, very grateful for that experience because it showed that it was a business. It opened my eyes. If they had offered a little less, I might have taken it. But when they offered as much as they did, I was like, oh, yeah, it raised my curiosity.
Okay, interesting. So it was a curiosity driven decision to, hey, let's go forward and let's see how big this can go and how big we can take this. That's very, very interesting. And so the business has evolved from just being a property management company, which in and of itself, it's a difficult business to be in, with its own set of challenges and whatnot, and just scaling a property management operation, is a full-time job in and of itself, right? But then it evolved into more of a holding company, what you have today, which you refer to as a family of companies, where you have getaway rentals, but you also started acquiring or merging or putting together other companies under the same umbrella. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition from business to more of a holding company? Why did that happen and how it came together?
Certainly. Now, one thing to keep in mind as entrepreneurs, sometimes we follow the bounce ball, and we will be looking at other options, other things, and so forth. And we're always distracted by the newest, greatest thing. We've been very focused, both with my team internally, my new wife, myself, that everything needs to, buzzword synergistic, right? It all needs to have synergy. But what we found, especially in our area, is that there's a ton of condos. The vacation rental business in New Smyrna Beach and Volusia County in general, Daytona and all, it's not new. It's been around long before Airbnb and everything else. People have been doing this for decades.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those are condos. And so the first thing we realized was there's a need, just like there was a need for a property management firm like ours. We believe that there was a need for an association management. So be it condos or homeowners or et cetera. Same kind of story. There's a lot of older mom and pops aren't bringing technology to the space, maybe not even great customer service or et cetera. And so we're like, all right, well, that makes sense. And also some of our buildings that we are in and going into, you have to be able to do both. You have to be a CAM or association management company, and you have to handle the rentals as well. So that one made real good sense. Our opportunities have opened because we can do both.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way, we realized that cleaning, and of course cleaning, everybody in this business knows, cleaning is everything. It's the key. If you don't have great cleans, you don't have great reviews, you're going to die on the vine sooner or later. And so we formed a separate cleaning company versus having them at Getaway Rentals. They're part of the GunnSmith family. They are employees. All of our cleaners are employees. We don't do contractors. And we've actually been able to take that, their professionalism, their skill set, and go to other buildings. We have one building. That was our entryway into the building. Now we do all their cleans. We handle all their linens. We take care of all that. Now we're actually in the process of talking about taking over their rentals and their association management. So how we get into that relationship or that door could end up leading to support the other businesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just so that we understand, so there's Getaway Rentals, then there's the association management piece of it, correct?
Yes, that's Blue Wave Management.
That's
we manage
Blue Wave Management. Got it. And then there's the cleaning, STR cleaning company.
Yep. Exactly.
And then finally you have the laundry, right? Christina's Coin Laundry. Got it. What's coming next under that umbrella? Anything else that you want to add to that equation?
Oh yeah, there will be, but not yet. The laundry just happened because we do have a commercial laundry in one of our buildings. You never know what's going to happen. We wanted to have a backup. And we got the seller at the right time. It made great sense. And so we brought that in under the umbrella as well. But it's all still around property. We've had times where all of a sudden every single condo, every single property is flipping, same day turns on a Saturday. Even our commercial grade washers and dryers can only handle so much. And so we're able to go to the laundry and get things done as well.
That's amazing. No, that's awesome. Being vertically integrated, it's a competitive edge that allows you to control your costs as well as your quality, right? Because you're big on quality control and making sure that things are done the right way, and a big part of that is putting the right people in place, and talk to us about your management approach, because since I met you, I got the impression that you have a very particular management style that is centered around, I might be wrong here, but around trust, and really about delegating and letting other people uh, do what they're meant to do, right, without necessarily micromanaging them, although you like to be involved in what's going on and be aware. Talk to us about your management style, and talk to us about how that has served you get to where you are today.
Uh, that's a great question. The Sometimes our style evolves over time. One advantage, and I 2.5 times your age probably, but one advantage as you get older is you hopefully have learned hard lessons and kept those lessons and didn't lose them over time. My belief as the entrepreneur is that you're to set the vision. Here's where we're going. Here's this train that we're on, bus that we're on, however you want to put it. Here's where we're going to go. Who should be in the right seat in order to run that particular area? We've been very fortunate to have some amazing folks that have stepped up over the last 6 months or so that are now running the various entities that treat it like it's their own company. We reward them that way too, but that comes after the fact. That person treats it like it's their business. They come to me if they need help. They come to me if they need some guidance. If they have it, they feel open that they can come and tell me when there's issues. So checking to me is we have a weekly call with each entity. They can reach us at any time with today's technology, right? There's chat and Slack and all that stuff. But it's really, here's the vision. Here's where I see us going. Here's where I know we can get to. Here's how I want to make sure we still are, be it the guest experience, the owner relations, whatever it might be. Tell me what you need. As that professional that's in it day to day, tell me what you need. I'm going to supply the vision. I'm going to supply the supplies and material you need. I'm going to try to remove roadblocks from you and let you do what you do. Get out of the way. Put the right people in the place and get out of their way.
Yeah, no, and talk to us about that transition, because it's not always easy to get out of the way. Getting out of the way when you feel like you could be doing things better, or a certain way you would like to see this being done faster. How did you convince yourself that getting out of the way was the right approach?
Even today, I may have sticky notes here and there that say stop and wait.
You may.
Because, yeah, maybe so. Um, it is hard to let go when you've been doing it all, but it's partly having that faith and that trust. Slow, hire slowly, fire fast. But if you've hired the right person, I think part of it is, and even just, it's a great story, even in the last week. So we've had some folks at the front desk that have been here for forever, years and years. Excuse me. So they work directly with me. And so now it's just human instinct. When this new manager tells them something, sometimes they may ping me and make sure it's okay. It's my responsibility, the entrepreneur and the owner's responsibility to say, to not just answer the question, right? But to stop and say, what has the manager said? What is your current, or what does your gut say? What do you think you're supposed to do? And what does your management say? So that falls on the owner. Too many times when transitions happen, it actually comes back to me and the owner's fault if there's not faith in that new manager. And so it's almost control. It's almost trusting your own interest, right? You hired the person. You hired them. You put them in that place. You're giving them what they need. Get out of their way. Don't be, going behind them. Because two things. One, you're always going to have drama and all, and none of us need that. And two, you're never going to get to where you want to go as an overall company for the good of all the employees and the guests and owners if you don't get out of the way.
Hmm.
And so it's hard. And I will tell you, there's time I do. I have moments where I stop, breathe. Not everything has to be answered at that moment. And so
Got it.
that's the
Got it.
hardest thing.
That's interesting. That's very, very interesting. Now, there's a book you recommended to me, which actually even had such an impact on my life that it's part of the name of the podcast here. The book is Unreasonable Hospitality, and you told me, Tim, that you had made this book mandatory for anyone on your team, anyone that wanted to join the company had to read this book. So, what are some of the principles in this book that you've been applying, and why is it that you decided everyone in your company should read this if they want to work with you?
So I believe that the book hit me the same way. Honestly, said it was incredible that um, I got married earlier this year in February, and so you're on the plane going off to the honeymoon, and I started reading it, a hard copy that somebody in the industry had sent me. So shout out to Thor for getting this whole process started. And I'm reading it. I read through it all nonstop. Didn't stop to take notes or anything else. I'm reading it all because it's just amazing what I'm reading. And then we get to the honeymoon spot, and I pull out the iPad. I immediately buy it on Kindle so that I can start highlighting and looking things up and everything else. I think the biggest thing was part of it was that previous point we just talked about. As a manager, and this it's all based around a restaurant business, but as a manager, you've told them what they need to do. You've trained them. You've put processes in place. You've put the vision. You've put the right people. Get out of their way. Don't micromanage. Let them do that. If you've told them make that guest feel super special, let them do that. We have right now, if somebody calls, our team calls and says, "Hey, why are you coming in? Anything special going on?" If it's they're coming to celebrate their 10th anniversary, that they can put flowers in the room, they could do chocolate, they could do a bottle of wine. That the staff has the ability, the team has the ability to make that special. They don't have to come and ask permission. I mean, there's budgets, of course, but they don't have to do that. They get to own that wowing somebody and that unreasonable hospitality. By doing that, it's one, it's empowering people. Two, let them do what they do. Number three, it's doing the right thing because it's the right thing. If our goal is X, any decision along the way should be feeding X. And if it's the right thing to do in order to achieve X, and X is right, then do it. Let them do it. They do not have to worry about getting yelled at later. Or I will give you an example. Somebody didn't realize that our particular discount codes were only for this slow season we have, August through December. Somebody booked our biggest month in March, and they still got a really large discount because the person taking the reservation didn't realize that there was a time limit on it. Well, A, we're not going to go back to the guest and say, sorry, you don't get that. B, I'm not going to yell at her. She didn't know. She did this in a row. Everybody knows now, right? Shame
Hmm.
on us. She wasn't aware of that. So people will make mistakes, but she was doing what she thought was best based on the vision and that empowerment and unreasonableness that I support her.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome. So the framework that comes to mind, going back to the importance of setting the right vision, is the one about vision, people, capital, which is basically that's what you should be working on as a CEO. You should be spending most of your time refining what that vision is, and making sure the boat is going in the right direction. And then it's all about your people, coaching them, encouraging them, empowering them, helping them, and getting out of the way, like you were saying, getting out of the way, and letting them do their thing. But then there's capital, right, which is another form of leverage. Tell us more about that vision, team, that you have right now for the company. Where are you guys heading? What can we expect to see in the coming months and years? And what's the end goal here?
The end goal is threefold. It is to provide an environment where employees that are passionate and love doing what they do are allowed to exceed or excel, and be what it is that they love, and they may not even know it yet, right? So that's a major goal. We want to build businesses that allow employees to excel and do what they love to do. Number two would be that our constituents will say in the short term, getaway rentals, it's going to be our guest. Associations, it's going to be the individual owners, condo and homes and so forth. For our cleaning clients, it's going to be that particular homeowner or business. We do commercial cleans as well.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, even at the laundromat, it's making sure the machines are working, the folks have a pleasant enough time as they can while they're doing laundry.
Mm-hmm.
So it's creating an experience where, especially, we can focus on getaway rentals for a moment. Folks come for experiences. Nobody vacations to not looking for an experience. They want to have a great experience. They want to be able to say, I've been coming, and we hear these stories all the time. They've been coming for years. The kids that we used to walk down to treats on the beach, and I turned my head because I can see it from my window. People, we used to walk the kids down there. Now they're teenagers walking themselves or their younger cousins down there. It's stories after stories of people for experiences. So how exciting is that? So we want to make sure that we always provide that for them. Our owners, be it an association owner, be it a board member, be it our owners that are in getaway rentals, for example, it's about how do we get them the most value for their property. And that doesn't always mean price. It means managing it correctly. It means keeping it up to date. It means protecting it from bad guests, from bad storm, whatever it might be. So it's a three-pronged approach of a place for employees to excel, a place for guests to have a great experience and come back to again and again, and a place for property owners to get the best value out of their property and protect it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, Tim, you mentioned that you recently got married, so congratulations once again on that. And you are, at a place where you're building a business. Essentially, you and your team are building a business, and when you're doing that, it's not always easy to have what people refer to as work-life balance, right? And balance can mean something for you, and it can mean something else for someone else. And I think no one should tell someone else what the right balance should be, right? But curious to know, for you specifically, how do you find balance? What does balance looks like for you, and how is it that you are able to still be as present, as engaged, as motivated in what you're doing, when really you could be retired after the first business you sold if you wanted to?
I'm going to be different than what most people say, probably. The whole work-life balance concept has been misconstrued. The idea that, well, if I got 8 hours of work, 8 hours of home, 8 hours of sleep, then that's balance. Life doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way if you are retired. Work-life balance means making the priority at that moment the priority. It doesn't mean, of course, doesn't mean going and ignoring your family or ignoring your business or anything else. But there's times you're going to be out of what people think of as balance because there's an overall. We can't say work-life balance is a day-to-day thing. Work-life balance is a quarterly thing, maybe. Maybe it's a yearly thing. It's probably too far to go one way or the other. But if in a quarter, if it's over a 90-day period, right, you can look and say, I took care of the business needs. I took care of my employees, my guests, my owners, etc. And I took care of my family. I was at all the important things. I think that's more work-life balance. It's not this day-to-day balance stuff or even weekly. Because there will be different priorities, right? Some days you have, your family's going through things and they need you there more. How do I manage it myself? Well, partly I don't try to manage it. I focus on the key things and keep those priorities. And then at the same time, for example, football season starts back up today. Every Friday night, I'm going to be with my new son at his football games. because that's a priority. Um, Try not to look at the phone. Try to stay away. The team, if you have a great team in place, you can do that. But then that also might mean that I have to be back over beachside tomorrow because I'm meeting with new owners. We've got some special guest stuff going on, maybe a board meeting, whatever. We have things going on. So you have to be flexible in that. You have to respect the fact that each priority needs its priority, and don't be a prisoner of, I have to have balance. Does that make sense? I don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not judging yourself that you
Right.
should be doing things a certain way, understanding that there's seasons and stages, and there might be some stages where you need to be more focused on the business, and other stages where things might be going well, and you can take a bit of a step back and focus on other things. I also like, this concept of, there's different ways of retirement. Like you can retire, by actually, let's say, selling a business and then just having enough cash that, your interest covers your expenses. You could have passive income coming in through assets. But another way of retiring is finding work that looks like work to others but feels like play to you. And of course, there's going to be things that you're going to have to do that you're not going to enjoy. But I feel that by and large, the people that we have on this podcast, the people that are passionate about hospitality, and they're doing it, and it doesn't always feel like work. There's going to be the stressful situations, there's going to be the hard times, but by and large, they enjoy what they're doing to the point that, they can't keep going, and they don't want to stop doing it. And I think that is a big competitive advantage, because if you find something that you enjoy and you're competing against someone that's forcing themselves to do that same work, then guess who's going to last longer?
Right. And create a better experience. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to be around folks that are on vacation. It really is.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I can imagine. Well, Tim, listen, this has been a very, very insightful conversation. A lot of nuggets and wisdom, and I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Where can people connect with you, or with your companies?
Of course. So Tim.Smith at GunnSmith.com. That's two N's in GunnSmith because that's my new wife's name. And so Tim.Smith at GunnSmith.com. Of course, GetawayRentals.com is the main site, public site for everybody. And love to talk ideas, thoughts. There's been a lot of lessons learned in the last 2 years, and I'm more than willing to share those if it can help others from not quite doing those. Mainly, it's going to be pointing them in the right direction. Be it Seb, you, and others at different conferences and all. There's a lot. This industry, I will say, it doesn't feel like competitors. We know we are, but at the same time, you're focused on building what people want to do. It doesn't have to be cutthroat, and most everybody in this industry is more than willing to help each other out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and plus the pie is large enough where there's enough for everyone to eat, and still some. So definitely a fun industry to be a part of. Definitely fun to collaborate with you, team, and really, really happy that you were able to take the time today out of the busy schedule. So hopefully we're gonna have you back on the show a few months from now, and you're gonna have much more interesting stories to tell us. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Tim.
Thank you. Have a great one.